Look, in less than 2 decades, Mom, these figures are quite incredible. It is predicted that 5 million jobs will be totally wiped out thanks to advancements in technology. A recent report by consulting firm McKinsey has found that 45% of the activities people are currently paid for could be automated in the future, meaning 45% of jobs could vanish. And it's not just warehouse workers and supermarket checkout staff finding themselves out of a job.
Now, a new cafe in Newcastle is making its mark as Australia's first automated restaurant, operating without any front-of-house staff at all. Customers order on iPads and pay with credit cards.
Joining us now is the owner of an automated cafe called Jesus, Jacob Bay, who's in Newcastle. We also have the Assistant Minister for Industry, Innovation and Science, Craig Laundy, and also Futurist Shara Evans. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, guys. This is quite an incredible discussion when you look at these figures, just how prevalent this is going to be. I'll come to you in a moment, but I just want to start with you, Jacob. You opened Jesus just on 2 weeks ago. Give us a sense of what the response has been to an automated cafe, in a sense, you know, ordering and paying all via automation.
Yeah, actually the response has been incredible. Looking at social media comments and reviews, people are absolutely loving it. In fact, we had planned to have a concierge sort of thing available for the first couple of months just to ease customers into it, but it became immediately apparent that they didn't really need us, and it sort of detracted from the overall novelty of it.
Why are people loving it? Do they just save them talking to anyone? Smiling, saying thank you?
I think there's some element of that. Yeah, I think so. Some people, in the fast food industry, food is very transactional. You know, it's not necessarily about service and other things. So people like to not have to have the pressure of that sort of forced conversation with a stranger, I think, to some degree.
Incredible development, isn't it? We should point out that is the real life Jacob giving us that interview. Craig, I want to come to you because it is a very serious discussion, this. Unemployment in Australia sitting something around 5.5%. When we look at what's projected here, 45% of our jobs could simply vanish. There's a big question about what we can do to safeguard Aussie jobs.
Look, Matt, my first message for your viewers is don't panic, because the numbers over the last 5 years, 850,000 new jobs have been created in total. So unemployment is down to 5.5% from 5.7% 2 months ago. But you're right, we need to and are as a government conscious of the fact that work in the future won't look like it does today in many fields. It's our key to identify that and have appropriate policy to make sure that Australians are skilled to move into those fields.
So the interesting other question as part of this study was that 80% of people don't think that it relates to them, and yet 45% of jobs don't exist anymore. So we're all thinking, oh, your jobs are going to go and that's going to be bad, but it's not us. So it really does put the onus back on the individual to do more study, skill themselves up in other areas, and the onus on the government to provide an opportunity to do that, right?
Yes, and that's what we're doing through the National Innovation and Science Agenda. We've identified 6 key areas of the Australian economy that we think we are uniquely placed to grow into the future, and your policy then lines up with things like education, the Skilling Australia Fund, $1.5 billion in the budget, and a real-life example, a cybersecurity growth centre, meeting with an education minister. There is a gap in the market, and working on how do you fill that gap.
But if people don't think that it relates to them, how do you push them into that study?
Look, you don't push, and economies change over time gradually. So you're talking about in years to come, people are thinking about what's work look like tomorrow. So our job as a government is to have the look longer term, put the policy settings in place so that the change can happen over time. A perfect example, the automotive industry in Australia, which we are transitioning away from to advanced manufacturing. It's been going on for some time.
There are some big challenges. Shara, I'd like to ask your opinion on this. I mean, you are a futurist. You look at all of this and say whether or not it's going to be a reality or we're all getting too worked up. What do you think? Are the figures right?
The figures are absolutely right. There are so many studies around the world that verify that anywhere from 40 to 50% of today's jobs are going to disappear or be fundamentally changed within the next 10 to 15 years or sooner. And it's not just robots, it's also artificial intelligence. And there are 3 real categories of job functions rather than specific jobs that I think people need to look at now. One is any kind of manual labour that is repeatable. The second is anything that has to do with data processing and data collection, and that's where you get a lot of white-collar jobs. What I find when I speak to audiences around the world is that most people have no idea of exactly how advanced robotics are already, and artificial intelligence, because it's a software program, they actually don't see it. They don't recognize that it might impact their job, and it's not in the long-term future. It's in the short-term future.
Right.
So what are the jobs that are what are the jobs that are safe then? I mean, who should be really worried? I mean, you'd assume creativity, imagination, those sorts of things will safeguard you a little. So we're in trouble.
Absolutely, and also anything involving complex decision-making. But if I look at any job, there are repeatable tasks. Even in the things that I do as a futurist, there are administrative things that I'd love to be able to automate. And I think it's up to not just the individuals, but to our corporations to take a lead, as well as government. And what I suggest to many of my clients and my audiences is that we start to look at the individual functions within a job and involve people in that discussion, and start to actually look at what can be automated in your job that you would absolutely love to automate.
To get rid of it, and you can be more creative and use your imagination. Just very quickly before you go, one job that's safe.
Oh gosh, well, I think a futurist is pretty safe.
Innovation Minister, that job's got to be safe, right?
Creativity.
Hold on, dude. You're safe for 3 years at least. Guys, thank you for the insights. It's an interesting field.
Thank you. We'll all become futurists. Awesome. Thank you.